The rain came down hard that night, drumming against the stone walls of the palace like 1,000 urgent fingers. Guard Captain Marcus stood at his post near the servants' entrance, the small back door that few people knew existed. It was midnight. Nothing ever happened at this hour. Nothing ever happened at this door, but tonight was different. Through the sheets of rain, Marcus saw a figure approaching. Not from the main road where visitors would come. This person came from the dark woods that bordered the palace grounds. They moved quickly, hunched against the storm, clutching something against their chest. Marcus's hand moved to his sword. After 20 years of service, his instincts were sharp. The figure reached the light of the lantern by the door. It was a young man, maybe 25, soaked to the bone. His clothes were expensive once, but now they were torn and mud-stained. His eyes darted left and right, wild with fear or exhaustion, or both. "I need to see the king," the young man said, breathless. "Right now. It's urgent." Marcus didn't move. The king doesn't receive visitors at the servants' entrance, especially not at midnight. "You don't understand," the man insisted. Water dripped from his dark hair. "I've traveled from California. 3,000 miles. I have a message. A message that cannot wait until morning. California." That word hung in the air between them. The king's daughter, Princess Alina, had gone to California 6 months ago. She had married a wealthy businessman there against her father's wishes. The king hadn't spoken her name since the day she left. Before you continue with this story, if you're enjoying these true emotional tales, subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. Marcus studied the messenger carefully. The young man's hands were shaking. From cold, yes. But also from something else. Fear. "What message?" Marcus asked. "I can only tell the king. Those were my instructions. Direct to the king. No one else." "Instructions from who?" The messenger hesitated. Rain pounded the cobblestones around them. Then he said, very quietly, "From Princess Alina." Marcus felt his chest tighten. The princess. After 6 months of silence, she sends a messenger to the back door in the middle of the night. Something was very wrong. "Show me proof," Marcus demanded. "Proof? You know the princess." The young man reached into his jacket and pulled out a small object. Even in the dim light, Marcus recognized it immediately. A golden locket. The king had given it to Alina on her 16th birthday. Marcus had been there that day. He remembered how she cried with joy, how she promised never to take it off. "She told me you would recognize this," the messenger said. She said to tell you she remembers the day you taught her to ride her first horse. She was 7. She fell off 3 times but refused to cry because she wanted to be brave like you. No one knew that story. No one except Marcus, the princess, and the king. Marcus's throat went dry. His mind raced. If Alina sent this man, if she sent her most precious possession, then whatever message he carried was more than urgent. It was desperate. "Wait here," Marcus said. He turned toward the door, then stopped. A thought struck him cold. "How did you know to come to this door? How did you know this entrance even existed?" The messenger's face went pale. For a moment, he said nothing. The rain seemed to grow louder in the silence. Finally, he spoke. "Because 3 nights ago, the princess told me that if I went to the main gate, I would be turned away. She said her father had given orders. Orders that anyone claiming to bring news from her should be arrested on sight." Marcus's blood ran cold. That order was real. He had been there when the king gave it, rage burning in his eyes. But how did Alina know? How did she know what her father had commanded 3,000 miles away? Unless someone in the palace had been sending her information. Unless this was all a trap. Marcus stood frozen, his mind spinning with possibilities. Each one darker than the last. If this was a trap, if this messenger was not who he claimed to be, then bringing him into the palace could mean death. Not just for Marcus, but for the king. There had been 3 assassination attempts in the past year. The kingdom had enemies, powerful enemies. But if the messenger was telling the truth, if Alina really had sent him, Then turning him away could be worse. Much worse. "Tell me your name," Marcus said, his voice hard as iron.
"David," the young man answered.
"Davy Chen. I worked for the princess's husband. I'm his assistant, and he sent you here." "The husband?" David's face twisted with something that looked like pain. "No, he doesn't know I'm here. The princess sent me in secret. She made me swear not to tell anyone, not even him." Marcus's suspicion deepened. A wife keeps secrets from her husband? "Not secrets," David said quickly. "Protection. She's protecting him. She's protecting everyone." "From what?" David's eyes filled with tears. Real tears. Marcus had interrogated enough men to know the difference between truth and performance. These tears were real. "Oh, from what's coming," David whispered. "Please, I've been traveling for 5 days straight. I've barely slept. I've spent every dollar I had to get here. The princess gave me money, but I was robbed in Nevada. I had to hitchhike through 2 states. I came here because she begged me to. She said her father would never believe a phone call or a letter. She said only a messenger could make him understand." "Understand what?" "That she needs him," David said, and his voice cracked. "That she's in terrible danger. That if he doesn't act now, he'll never see his daughter again." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Never see his daughter again. The same daughter the king claimed to have disowned. The same daughter whose name brought storms of rage to the old man's face. But Marcus remembered other things too. He remembered the king standing at Elena's bedroom window the night she left, silent tears running down his weathered cheeks. He remembered how the king still had her childhood paintings hanging in his private study. Even though he'd ordered all her photographs, removed from the public halls, love and pride were at war in that old man's heart. Marcus knew it. Everyone in the palace knew it. "If I bring you to the king," Marcus said slowly, "and this turns out to be a lie, they'll hang you before sunrise." "I know," David said. "They'll hang me too." "I know," David said again. "And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put this on you. But the princess said you were the only one who would listen. She said you were the only one who loved her the way a father should." That last sentence cut deep. Marcus had watched Elena grow up. He'd been there for her first steps, her first words. He'd protected her from kidnappers when she was 12. He'd dried her tears when her mother died. The king loved his daughter, yes. But the king was also a hard man, a proud man, a man who valued his honor above all else. When Elena chose love over duty, when she married a foreigner without permission, the king saw it as betrayal. Marcus saw it as courage. "Come with me," Marcus said finally. "But if you make one wrong move, if I sense for even a second that you're lying, I'll kill you myself." David nodded. "I understand." They moved through the servants' entrance into a narrow hallway lit by oil lamps. The palace was quiet. Most of the staff were asleep. Only the night guards were awake, and they were stationed at the main corridors. Not here. Marcus led David through a maze of passages. These were the hidden ways, the secret routes that servants used to move through the palace unseen. Marcus had walked these halls for 2 decades. He knew every turn, every shadow. "Why did she send you?" Marcus asked as they climbed a stone staircase. "Why not someone from the family? Why not her husband?" David was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Because she trusts me. And because I owe her everything." "What does that mean?" "It means 2 years ago, I was homeless, sleeping in my car. I'd lost my job, my apartment, everything. Her husband found me at a shelter. He gave me work. But it was the princess who gave me hope. She treated me like a human being when everyone else looked through me like I was invisible. When she asked me to do this, I couldn't say no. I would walk across fire for her." The emotion in his voice was raw, honest. Marcus wanted to believe him. God, he wanted to believe him. They reached the king's corridor. 2 guards stood at attention outside the royal chambers.
"Captain," one of them said, surprised.
"What are you doing here?" Marcus took a breath. This was the moment. The point of no return. "I need to wake the king," he said. "We have an urgent situation." The guards looked at David, taking in his disheveled appearance, his muddy clothes. "Who is this?" the second guard asked, hand moving to his weapon. Marcus met his eyes. "A messenger. From California?" Temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Sir," the first guard said carefully, "you know the king's orders." "Anyone from California?" "I know the orders," Marcus interrupted. "But this is different. This concerns the princess." The guards exchanged glances. They were young men, loyal, but inexperienced. They didn't know what to do. "Wake the king," Marcus repeated. "Tell him Captain Marcus needs to see him immediately. Tell him it's about his daughter. And tell him if he doesn't see us right now, he may never get another chance." The weight of those words settled over everyone. The first guard disappeared into the king's chambers. Marcus stood in the hallway with David, both of them dripping rainwater onto the marble floor. Waiting, hearts pounding. Either Marcus had just made the best decision of his life, or he had just sealed both their fates. The door to the king's chambers flew open with a violence that made everyone jump. King Richard stood in the doorway, a robe thrown hastily over his nightclothes. His gray hair was wild. His eyes blazed with fury. At 72, he was still an imposing figure, tall and broad-shouldered. With the bearing of a man who had commanded armies. "What is the meaning of this?" he thundered. His voice echoed off the stone walls. Marcus stepped forward, standing at attention. "Your Majesty, I apologize for the late hour. But this man has traveled from California with an urgent message. He carries proof that he comes from the princess." The king's face went dark red. "I have no daughter in California. I have no daughter at all." "Father, please," Marcus began, but caught himself. In formal settings, he was never supposed to call the king father, even though that's what their relationship had become over the years. "Your Majesty, please. Just hear what he has to say." The king's eyes shifted to David. The young man stood trembling. Whether from cold or fear, Marcus couldn't tell. "You," the king said, pointing a finger at David. "You dare come to my palace. You dare speak my daughter's name." David swallowed hard. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Your Majesty, I mean no disrespect. I come only because the princess begged me to. She said it was a matter of life and death." "Life and death," the king repeated mockingly. "Everything is life and death with young people. Drama, emotion, no sense of duty or honor." "She sent this," David said, pulling out the golden locket again. His hands shook as he held it up. The king went very still. His eyes locked on the locket. For a moment, the anger drained from his face, replaced by something else. Pain. Raw, undeniable pain. "Where did you get that?" the king asked, his voice suddenly quiet. "She gave it to me. She said you would recognize it. She said it would prove I'm telling the truth." The king stepped forward slowly. He reached out and took the locket from David's hand. He opened it. Inside was a tiny photograph, faded with age. A picture of Elena as a child, smiling with her mother beside her. The king's jaw clenched. His eyes glistened. "What is the message?" he asked, not looking up from the photograph. David took a shaky breath. "She's dying, Your Majesty." The words fell like stones into a silent pond. Marcus felt his heart stop. The king's head snapped up. "What did you say?" "The princess is dying," David repeated, tears streaming down his face now. "She has cancer. Stage 4. The doctors say she has 3 months, maybe less." The king staggered backward. The guard behind him moved to catch him, but the king waved him away. "No," the king whispered. "No, that's not possible. She's 28 years old. She's young. She's healthy. She's been sick for 6 months," David said. "She hid it from everyone at first, even from her husband. By the time she finally saw a doctor, it was too late. It had spread. They tried chemotherapy, radiation, everything. Nothing worked." Marcus felt tears burning in his own eyes. "Elena. Sweet, bright, beautiful Elena dying?" the king asked, his voice breaking. "Why didn't she call? Why didn't she write?" "She tried," David said. She called the palace 17 times. Every time, she was told you refused to speak to her. She wrote letters, 23 letters. They were all returned unopened. The king looked at Marcus. Is this true? Did letters come? Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, Your Majesty. I saw them myself. You ordered them burned. The king's face crumpled. He aged 10 years and 10 seconds. I thought she was asking for money, or apologizing just to manipulate me. I thought his voice broke completely. God forgive me. I thought she was trying to trick me into accepting her marriage. She doesn't care about the marriage anymore, David said. She doesn't care about your approval or your blessing. She just wants to see you. She wants to say goodbye. The king sat down heavily in a chair by the door. He looked smaller suddenly. Fragile. 3 months, he whispered. Maybe less. The cancer is aggressive. Last week, she collapsed. They rushed her to the hospital. When she woke up, she told me I had to come here. She said she couldn't die without seeing her father one last time. She said she needed to know that you forgave her. Forgive her. The king looked up, tears running down his weathered cheeks. She thinks she needs my forgiveness? I'm the one who turned her away. I'm the one who burned her letters. I'm the one who he couldn't finish. The hallway was silent except for the sound of the king's quiet weeping. Marcus had never seen the old man cry. Not once in 20 years, Your Majesty, Marcus said gently. If you want to see her, we need to act quickly. We need to arrange travel to California immediately. The king wiped his eyes roughly. Yes, of course. We'll leave at first light. No, we'll leave now. Right now. Prepare the plane. Wake the pilots. I don't care what it costs. There's a problem, David said quietly. Everyone looked at him. Princess can't travel. She's too weak. The doctors said the flight would kill her. Her body can't handle it. The king stood up, his old strength returning. Then I'll go to her. I'll go tonight. There's something else, David interrupted. His face had gone pale. Something I haven't told you yet? Something the princess made me swear to keep secret until you agreed to come. A cold feeling crept down Marcus's spine. What? The king demanded. What else? David looked at the floor. The princess's husband. Robert Chen. He's a good man. A kind man. But his family, they're not good people. What does that mean? Marcus asked. David's voice dropped to barely a whisper. It means they're involved in things. Illegal things. Dangerous things. The princess found out about it 3 months ago. She confronted Robert. He swore he wasn't part of it, that he'd been trying to get away from his family for years. The princess believed him, and the king pressed. His family didn't like that she knew. They didn't like that she might expose them. 2 weeks ago, someone ran her car off the road. The police said it was an accident. But the princess doesn't think so. She thinks someone is trying to kill her before the cancer does. The king's face went white. They're trying to kill my daughter? She's not sure. But she's scared. She's alone in that hospital most of the time. Robert is trying to protect her, but he's just one man against his entire family. She needs help. Real help. She needs you. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. Someone was threatening Alina. Someone was trying to hurt her while she was dying. The king stood up straight. All the weakness, all the grief, vanished from his face. In its place was something hard, something dangerous. Marcus, he said, his voice like steel. Gather 20 of our best men, armed. Alert the pilots. We leave in 1 hour. Yes, Your Majesty. The king turned to David. You'll come with us. You'll show us where she is? David nodded. Of course. And then, the king said, his eyes burning with cold fire, we're going to deal with anyone who dares threaten my daughter. I don't care who they are. I don't care how powerful they think they are. They're going to learn what it means to make an enemy of a king. Marcus felt a chill run through him. He'd seen that look in the king's eyes before. Years ago. During the war, someone in California had just made a terrible mistake. They had awakened a sleeping lion. Asterisk the royal plane, cut through the night sky. Engines humming steadily. Inside the cabin, tension hung thick in the air. King Richard sat by the window, staring out at the darkness. He hadn't spoken since takeoff. In his hand, he clutched Elena's locket, his thumb running over it again and again like a prayer. Marcus sat across from him, watching, worrying. The king had aged a decade in the past hour. The fire that had burned in his eyes earlier had dimmed to something quieter, something sadder. David sat near the back of the plane with 2 guards watching him. He'd been given dry clothes and hot coffee, but he still looked exhausted. Every few minutes, his eyes would close, then snap open again, as if he was afraid to sleep. "Marcus," the king said suddenly. His voice was hoarse. "Yes, Your Majesty. Tell me honestly. Do you think I'm a terrible father?" The question caught Marcus off guard. In all their years together, the king had never asked him anything like this. "I think," Marcus said carefully, "you're a man who loves his daughter very much. Sometimes love makes us do foolish things." The king laughed bitterly. "Foolish. That's one word for it. My daughter was dying and I was burning her letters." "You didn't know?" "I should have known," the king snapped. Then quieter, "I should have listened. I should have read at least one letter. Just one." He fell silent again. Marcus wanted to say something comforting, but what comfort was there? The king was right. He had failed. They had all failed. 2 hours into the flight, one of the guards approached Marcus. "Captain, the messenger wants to speak with you. Says it's important." Marcus walked to the back of the plane. David looked up at him with red-rimmed eyes. "What is it?" Marcus asked. "I need to tell you something," David said quietly. "Something I didn't say in front of the king." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "What? The princess's husband, Robert? 3 days ago, he disappeared." "Disappeared?" "He went to a meeting with his family. He was going to tell them he was done, that he wanted out of their business completely. He never came home. The princess has been trying to find him, but no one knows where he is. Or they're not saying." Marcus cursed under his breath. "Does the king need to know this?" "I don't know," David admitted. "The princess told me not to tell anyone. She said if word got out that Robert was missing, his family might panic. They might do something drastic, but I thought you should know. In case things get dangerous, or already dangerous," Marcus said. "The question is, how dangerous?" He returned to his seat and told the king everything. The old man's face grew harder with each word. "So this Robert might be dead already?" The king asked. "It's possible. If he is, his family will assume my daughter knows too much." "Yes," the king nodded slowly. "Then we need to get Alina out of that hospital before they make their move. We'll need help," Marcus said. "Local authorities, police," the king said sharply. "If Robert's family is as powerful as the messenger suggests, they'll have people in the police force. People who will warn them the moment we arrive." "Then what do you suggest?" The king's eyes hardened. "We go in quietly. We get my daughter, and we get out. No announcements, no press. No one knows we're there until we're already gone, Your Majesty. That's a huge risk." "Everything is a risk now," the king said. "But I won't lose my daughter. Not again. Not when I just got her back." The plane began its descent 3 hours later. They landed at a private airfield outside Los Angeles. It was 4 in the morning. The air was cool and smelled of ocean salt. 3 black SUVs were waiting for them. The king had called ahead, using contacts from his old military days. Men he trusted. Men who owed him favors. "Where's the hospital?" the king asked David as they climbed into the vehicles. "St. Michael's Medical Center. About 30 minutes from here." "Take us there." They drove through empty streets. Los Angeles was asleep, its famous highways quiet for once. Marcus sat in the front passenger seat, scanning every car they passed, every shadow. He had a bad feeling. A feeling that had kept him alive through wars and assassination attempts. The feeling that they were walking into something worse than they knew. "David," he said, turning around. "When was the last time you spoke to the princess?" "Yesterday morning. Before I left to catch my flight, And she was in the hospital? Yes, room 412. Fourth floor. Did she sound afraid? David hesitated. Yes, but also relieved. She said knowing her father would come gave her hope. She said she could hold on a little longer. Marcus's chest tightened. Hold on a little longer. God, he hoped they weren't too late. The hospital appeared ahead, a tall white building lit up against the dark sky. They parked in the emergency lot, away from the main entrance. We'll split into groups, Marcus said. Your Majesty, you'll come with me and 2 guards. The rest will secure the perimeter. Watch for anything suspicious. Anyone who looks like they're watching the building. The king nodded. He looked tense, but focused. They entered through a side door. A sleepy security guard looked up from his desk. Visiting hours don't start until 8, he said. Marcus pulled out a badge. It wasn't his real badge, but it looked official enough in the dim light. We're here on urgent business. Family emergency. Room 412. The guard squinted at the badge, then shrugged. 4th floor. Elevators are that way. They moved quickly through the empty hallways. Their footsteps echoed off the linoleum. Everything smelled of disinfectant and sickness. The elevator ride felt like an eternity. The king stood rigid, his jaw clenched. Marcus could see the old man's hands shaking. 4th floor. The doors opened. The hallway was dimly lit. A nurse sat at the station writing something in a chart. She looked up as they approached. Can I help you? She asked. We're here to see Alina Chen, the king said. Room 412? The nurse frowned. It's 4 in the morning. Patients are sleeping. It's an emergency, Marcus said firmly. We've traveled a long way. The nurse looked at them suspiciously. I'll need to see ID. We're family, the king said, his voice breaking slightly on that last word. Something in his tone must have convinced her. She sighed. Room 412 is down the hall, last door on the left. But please keep your voices down. Other patients are resting. They walked down the corridor. Marcus counted the room numbers. 408, 410, 412. The king stopped outside the door. His hand went to the handle, then froze. What if she doesn't want to see me? He whispered. What if she's still angry? There's only one way to find out, Marcus said gently. The king took a deep breath. Then he opened the door. The room was dark, except for the glow of medical monitors. A figure lay in the bed, small and still under white sheets. The king stepped inside. Marcus followed. As they got closer, Marcus could see her Alina, but not the Alina he remembered. This woman was thin, her skin pale as paper. Her dark hair, once long and beautiful, was gone. The chemotherapy had taken it. But she was breathing. She was alive. The king moved to her bedside. His hand reached out, trembling, and touched her arm. Alina, he whispered. Baby girl, it's me. It's your father. Alina's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, she looked confused. Then her eyes focused on the king's face. Daddy. She breathed. The word was barely audible. I'm here, the king said, tears streaming down his face. I'm here, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Elena's eyes filled with tears. She tried to sit up, but she was too weak. The king helped her, holding her like she was made of glass. You came, she whispered. David said you would, but I was afraid. I'm here, the king repeated. I'm here and I'm not leaving you. Not ever again. They held each other, both crying, both saying sorry, over and over. Marcus turned away to give them privacy. He wiped his own eyes. And that's when he heard it. A sound in the hallway. Footsteps. Multiple footsteps. Moving fast. Marcus's hand went to his weapon. He moved to the door and looked out. 5 men were walking down the corridor. They wore suits, but Marcus could see the bulges under their jackets. Guns. They were heading straight for room. Marcus's blood went cold. He turned back to the king. Your Majesty, he said urgently, we need to go. Right now. The king looked up sharply. What's wrong? Armed men in the hallway, Marcus said, his training taking over. 5 of them. Coming this way? He moved to Elena's bedside. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. "Can you walk?" Marcus asked her. "Dono. We don't have time," Marcus interrupted. He turned to the king. "Your Majesty, you'll need to carry her." The king didn't hesitate. Despite his age, despite his grief, he slid his arms under his daughter and lifted her from the bed. She weighed almost nothing. Her body was fragile as bird bones. Before Alina gasped, pointing at the tube in her arm, Marcus yanked it out. There was no time to be gentle. Alina bit back a cry of pain. "The back stairs," Marcus said. Now they moved to the door. Marcus cracked it open and looked out. The 5 men were 20 feet away. 15. They had their hands inside their jackets now. "Ready to draw weapons?" "Go," Marcus hissed. They slipped out of the room and turned left, away from the approaching men. The 2 guards who had come with them fell in behind, creating a protective barrier. "Hey!" Someone shouted behind them. "Stop!" Marcus didn't look back. Stairs. There. They burst through the stairwell door. The king was breathing hard, his face red with exertion. But he held Alina tight and kept moving. Behind them, the stairwell door slammed open.
Ow.
"Move faster," Marcus ordered. They took the stairs 2 at a time. 3rd floor. 2nd floor. Elena's head bounced against her father's chest. She was trying to be brave, but Marcus could see the pain in her face. 1st floor. They crashed through the door into a corridor. "This way," Marcus said, his memory of the building's layout kicking in. He'd studied the floor plan during the car ride. Always prepared. Always thinking ahead, they ran past startled nurses and orderlies. Someone called out, asking what was happening, but they didn't stop. Marcus spoke into his radio. "This is Captain Marcus. We're coming out the east exit. Need immediate extraction. We have hostiles in pursuit. Static." "Then, copy that, Captain. Vehicles are moving to your position." They burst out into the cool morning air. The sky was beginning to lighten. Dawn was coming. One of the black SUVs screeched to a stop in front of them. The door flew open. "Get in," the driver shouted. The king climbed in with Alina still in his arms. Marcus and the 2 guards piled in after them. The door wasn't even closed before the vehicle took off. Marcus looked back. The 5 men had emerged from the hospital. One of them raised a phone to his ear. Making a call. "Reporting." "Drive," Marcus ordered. "Fast." The SUV accelerated through the parking lot and onto the street. The other 2 vehicles fell in behind them, forming a protective convoy in the back seat. Alina was crying softly. The king held her close, murmuring to her, telling her she was safe now. But they weren't safe. Marcus knew that. "Not yet." "Where are we going?" the driver asked. "The airfield," Marcus said. "We get to the plane, and we get out of this city." "Well, follow us," one of the guards said. "They know we're here now." Marcus pulled out his phone and called the pilot. "How fast can you get the plane ready to fly?" "We're already prepped," the pilot responded. "Just need passengers aboard. We'll be there in 20 minutes. Be ready to take off the second we arrive." "Understood." Marcus turned to Alina. "Your husband, Robert, do you know where he is?" She shook her head weakly. "No, he went to meet his uncle. That was 3 days ago. He hasn't called. He hasn't texted. I think they killed him." Her voice broke on those last words. The king's face hardened. "When you're safe," he said, "when you're back at the palace under protection, I'll send people to find out what happened to your husband. If he's alive, we'll get him out. If he's dead," his voice turned cold, "then justice will be served." Alina looked up at her father. "I loved him, Daddy. I know you didn't approve, but I really loved him." "I know, sweetheart," the king said softly. "I know you did, and I'm sorry I didn't give him a chance. I'm sorry for so many things." They drove through the empty streets. The sun was rising now, painting the sky pink and gold. Marcus kept watching the side mirrors. No one was following them. Not yet, but they would be soon. Men like that didn't give up. "Alina," Marcus said gently. "Your husband's family. What exactly are they involved in?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Everything. Drugs. weapons, human trafficking. They own half the businesses in the city, but it's all a front. Robert's father built an empire on blood and fear. Robert tried to get away from it. He went to college, got a legitimate job, tried to build a different life. But his family never let him go completely. They always had a hold on him. And when you found out? Marcus asked. I confronted him. He broke down and told me everything. He said he'd been trying to gather evidence, trying to find a way to bring his family down from the inside. But they found out. They knew he was planning to betray them. That's when things got dangerous. The car accident. It wasn't an accident, Elena said. I saw the car that hit me. I saw the driver's face. It was Marco, Robert's cousin. He tried to run me off a cliff. I swerved at the last second and crashed into a tree instead. The police said I was lucky to survive. Why didn't you call me then? The king asked, anguish in his voice. I did call, Elena said. That was one of the 17 times. They told me you refused to speak to me, so I sent David instead. I knew if you saw proof, if you heard how serious it was, you'd come. The king closed his eyes. I'm so sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry I let my pride come before your safety. It's okay, Daddy, she whispered. You're here now. That's what matters. The airfield came into view. Marcus felt a small surge of relief. Almost there, but then he saw them. 3 black cars parked near the entrance to the private hangar. Men standing beside them, waiting.
What?
The car, Marcus ordered. The driver hit the brakes. What's wrong? The king asked. They're already here, Marcus said. They knew where we were going. How? One of the guards asked. Marcus's mind raced. Then it hit him. The security guard at the hospital. He must have called them after we went upstairs. Told them we were there. What do we do? The driver asked. Marcus counted the men by the cars. 8 of them. His team had 7. The numbers were close, but the enemy had the advantage of position. They were blocking the only route to the plane. We don't have a choice, Marcus said. We have to go through them. It's suicide, the guard said. It's suicide to stay here, Marcus countered. They'll call for reinforcements. Soon we'll be outnumbered 10-1. The king looked at Marcus. What do you need me to do? Stay down. Protect Elena. Let us handle this. Marcus spoke into his radio, addressing all 3 vehicles. Listen carefully. We're going to drive straight at them. Do not stop. Do not slow down. If they shoot, keep driving. Our objective is to reach that plane. Nothing else matters. Copy that, came the responses. Marcus turned to the driver. When I say go, floor it. Don't stop for anything. The driver nodded, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Marcus took a deep breath. Then he said, go. The SUV's engine roared. They shot forward. The men by the cars saw them coming. They shouted to each other. Weapons came out. Get down, Marcus yelled. The king hunched over Elena, shielding her with his body. The first shot rang out, then another, then a dozen more. Glass shattered. Bullets punched into the vehicle's armored sides. The driver kept his foot on the gas. They were 50 yards away. 40. 30. One of the enemy cars started moving, trying to block the road. Ram it, Marcus ordered. The driver didn't hesitate. Their SUV slammed into the side of the enemy vehicle with a tremendous crash. Metal shrieked. Airbags exploded. But they were through. The other 2 SUVs followed, breaking through the barrier. They skidded to a stop beside the plane. The stairs were already down. The engines were running. Move, Marcus shouted. The king kicked open his door and ran for the plane with Elena in his arms. The guards formed a protective circle, returning fire at the men pursuing them. Marcus was the last one up the stairs. Bullets whined past his head. One caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He gritted his teeth against the pain and kept climbing. Strong hands grabbed him and pulled him into the plane. The door slammed shut. Go. Marcus yelled to the pilot. Go now. The plane was already moving. It raced down the runway faster and faster. Through the window, Marcus could see the enemy cars giving chase, but they were too late. The plane lifted off the ground, rising, climbing, leaving Los Angeles behind. Marcus slumped into his seat, breathing hard. Blood soaked his shirt from the shoulder wound. One of the guards moved to help him, but Marcus waved him off. "Check on the princess first." Elena was lying across 2 seats, the king beside her holding her hand. She looked pale and weak, but she was conscious. "We made it," she whispered. "We actually made it." "We made it," the king agreed, tears in his eyes again. Marcus closed his eyes, letting exhaustion wash over him. They had made it, barely. But the danger wasn't over. Someone had tried to kill the princess. Someone had probably killed her husband. And that someone had resources, connections, and a long reach. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. The palace medical wing had been transformed into a full hospital room. The king had brought in the best doctors from 3 countries. They worked around the clock, monitoring Elena's condition, managing her pain, doing everything they could, but everyone knew the truth. The cancer was winning. 2 weeks had passed since they rescued Elena from California. 2 weeks of stolen moments between a father and daughter who had lost so much time. Marcus stood outside Elena's room, his arm in a sling from the gunshot wound. It was healing well. Unlike other wounds in this palace, wounds that would never heal. The king emerged from the room. He looked older than ever. The weight of the world sat on his shoulders. "How is she?" Marcus asked. "Sleeping. The morphine helps with the pain." The king's voice was hollow. "The doctors say it won't be long now. Days, maybe hours." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty." The king walked to the window overlooking the palace grounds. The gardens were in full bloom. Spring had come. New life everywhere, except in that room. "She asked about her husband again," the king said quietly. "She keeps asking if we've found him."
Yes.
Marcus had sent investigators to California. What they found had broken his heart. "Your Majesty, I received a report this morning." The king turned. "Tell me." "Robert Chen is dead. They found his body 3 days ago. He'd been killed the same night he went to meet his family. Shot twice in the head and dumped in the ocean. A fisherman found him." The king closed his eyes. "Does Elena know?" "Not yet. I wanted to tell you first." "Don't tell her," the king said. "Let her keep hoping. Let her believe he might still be out there somewhere. She doesn't need to die knowing the truth." "Your Majesty, that's an order, Marcus." Marcus nodded. He understood. Some mercies were necessary, even if they were lies. "What about Robert's family?" the king asked. "Have they been dealt with?" "The FBI raided their operations yesterday. Evidence we provided helped build the case. 14 arrests so far, including Robert's father and uncle. They'll spend the rest of their lives in prison." "Good," the king said. There was no satisfaction in his voice, just emptiness. Justice didn't bring back the dead. The days blurred together. The king barely left Elena's side. He read to her from her favorite childhood books. He told her stories about her mother. He held her hand and talked to her about everything and nothing. Marcus watched them and felt his own grief building. He had known Elena her whole life. He had taught her to ride horses, to defend herself, to be strong. He had been there for her first day of school and her graduation. He had walked her to her first dance. And now he would watch her die. On the 4th day, David arrived at the palace. He had stayed in California to help with the investigation, but he came back when he heard Elena was fading. "Can I see her?" he asked Marcus. "The king is with her now, but I'm sure he'll let you in." They walked to Elena's room together. The king looked up when they entered. "Hey, David," he said. "She's been asking for you." David approached the bed. Elena's eyes opened. She smiled weakly. "You came back," she whispered. "Of course I came back," David said, taking her hand. "I told you I'd walk through fire for you. Remember?" "I remember." Her voice was so faint now. "Thank you. For everything. For bringing my father to me. You don't need to thank me." Yes, I do. She looked at the king. Daddy, David doesn't have any family. When I'm gone, will you? Will you take care of him? Give him a job here? He's a good person. He deserves better than what he has. The king's eyes filled with tears, but he nodded. I will. I promise. Alina smiled. Good. That makes me happy. She closed her eyes again, exhausted from the brief conversation. That night, Marcus was woken by one of the guards. Captain, the princess. You need to come. Marcus ran to her room. The king was already there, holding Elena's hand. The doctors stood back, their faces grave. Alina was awake, but barely. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Marcus, she said, when she saw him. Come here. He moved to her bedside. Tears blurred his vision. You were like a second father to me, she whispered. Thank you for protecting me. All those years, it was my honor, Marcus managed to say. Alina looked at her father. Daddy, I need to tell you something. What is it, sweetheart? I forgive you. For everything. The anger, the silence, all of it. I forgive you. And I need you to forgive yourself, King sobbed. I don't know how. Start by remembering the good times. Remember teaching me to dance at the winter ball? Remember our picnics by the lake? Remember all the times you made me laugh? She paused for breath. Don't remember the pain. Remember the love. I'll try, the king promised. I'll try. Elena's eyes began to close. I'm tired, Daddy. I know, baby. You can rest now. Will you stay with me? I'm not going anywhere, and Mom? Will she be there when I wake up? The king's face crumpled, but he kept his voice steady. Yes, your mother will be waiting for you. Good, Elena breathed. I've missed her so much. Her breathing slowed. The room fell silent except for the quiet beep of the heart monitor. And then as the sun began to rise outside the window, painting the sky gold and pink, the beeping stopped. Alina was gone. The king held her for a long time. He held her and wept and told her he loved her over and over. Marcus stood by the window, tears streaming down his face. The gardens below were beautiful in the morning light. Birds sang. Life continued. But in this room, a light had gone out. The funeral was held 3 days later. Thousands came to pay their respects. The princess, who had been forgotten by the kingdom, was remembered in death. But the service the king cared about was smaller, private, just family and close friends in the palace chapel. David read a poem Alina had loved. Marcus gave a eulogy about the brave, bright girl he had watched grow into a brave, bright woman. The king said nothing. He sat in the front row, staring at his daughter's portrait, his face like stone. After the service, after everyone had left, Marcus found the king in Elena's old bedroom. He was sitting on her bed holding a stuffed bear she'd had since childhood. Your Majesty? Marcus said gently. She was right, you know, the king said, about remembering the good times. I keep seeing her smile, her laugh. The way she used to run through these halls when she was little. He paused. That's what I'm going to hold on to. Not the end, but all the moments before it. That's wise, Your Majesty. The king looked up. I'm stepping down, Marcus. What? I'm abdicating. The throne will pass to my nephew. I'm too old, too tired, and too broken to rule. I've made too many mistakes. Your Majesty, you don't have to. Yes, I do. I need to. I need time to heal. Time to remember how to be human instead of a king. And I'm going to honor my promise to Alina. David will have a position here. In fact, I'm going to establish a foundation in Elena's name. A foundation to help people who are struggling, people who feel invisible, just like David once did. I want you to help me run it. Marcus felt tears stinging his eyes again. It would be my honor. King put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. You're a good man, Marcus. A better man than I deserved. Thank you for never giving up on my daughter, for bringing her home to me. She brought herself home, Marcus said. She was the brave one. The king agreed softly. She was. 6 months later, Marcus stood in front of a new building. The Alina Foundation, the sign read. Inside, dozens of people were working, helping homeless individuals find jobs, helping struggling families get back on their feet, helping people who felt invisible be seen again. David ran the day-to-day operations. He had found his calling, his purpose. Elena had given him that, even in death. The king visited often. He was no longer King Richard, ruler of the land. He was just Richard, a man trying to make up for lost time by helping others. Marcus watched them work and felt something close to peace. Elena was gone, but her light still shone. Her love still touched lives. Her forgiveness had transformed her father from a bitter, broken man into someone who could heal others. Late one evening, as the foundation was closing, Marcus walked past Elena's portrait in the lobby. She was smiling in the picture, young and full of life. "We did it," he said softly to the portrait. "We're remembering the love just like you asked." The next morning, Marcus woke early and drove to the palace cemetery. He did this every week now. He walked to Elena's grave, sat on the bench beside it, and talked to her. He told her about the foundation, about the people they'd helped, about her father's transformation, about David's success. "You changed everything," Marcus said. "Even in death, you brought people together. You healed old wounds. You saved your father from himself." The morning sun broke through the clouds, warm on his face. "Rest well, princess," Marcus said. "Your work here is done." And it was beautiful. He stood up to leave, but something caught his eye. There, growing beside the grave, was a single flower. It hadn't been there yesterday. A rose, Elena's favorite. Marcus smiled through his tears. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Maybe the gardener had planted it. Or maybe, just maybe, Elena was sending a message. That love never dies. That forgiveness heals. That even in the darkest moments, hope can bloom. Marcus touched the rose gently, then walked back toward the palace. The sun was rising higher now, chasing away the shadows. There was work to do. Lives to change. Light to share. Elena's light. And it would never, ever go out.